Grizzlies fans, welcome back. It is time to play the Timberwolves yet again. This is the very quickly scheduled game kind of in this in-season tournament time. So joining me one more time, again, just like last week, a familiar face, John Krawczynski. Let's break this one down because the last game wasn't great between these two teams. So I'm hoping this one's a little better.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I mean, you can argue, Kelcey, that that game against the Grizzlies was the last really clean game the Wolves have played. They've been a little ragged lately against Utah, against Charlotte, against the Spurs, and whether it's kind of dealing with a couple of the injuries they've had or just a little bit of complacency against teams down the standings, they just haven't been super sharp. So Ant loves playing in Memphis. I think this team likes playing the Grizzlies, so we'll have to see how they respond tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Ant called out the Grizzlies fans last game too.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be interesting to see how they respond. Okay, so all this to say, that was their last clean game. They're also on a 5-game winning streak. They have the NBA's best record, 16-4. The Grizzlies are coming off a win in Detroit, which is their third win in their last 4 games. It was a career night for Desmond Bane with 49 points. But like I mentioned, the last time that they played the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves, it was 119-97, and things could not get worse for the Grizzlies. John, I know you watched this game, but I'm just going to recap it for anyone who's watching who didn't. Field goal percentage. Timberwolves shot 53%, the Grizzlies 38. 3-point percentage, Timberwolves shot 44, Grizzlies 27. When you watched that game, did the Timberwolves play really good? Because in my eyes, the Grizzlies, they're not going to play worse than that.
Yeah. Well, I would say this for Grizzlies fans worried about that game a little bit is I don't know any way other to say this than that's what the Wolves are doing to everyone right now. They hold every team under 100 points. They hold every team under 40% shooting. That's just how good they've been defensively. They have Rudy Gobert in the middle. Then they have great perimeter defenders in Edwards and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Jaden McDaniels, thankfully for the Grizzlies, probably is not back tonight yet. So they just have a lot of weapons and play with a lot of intensity defensively, and they get after it, especially in the second halves of games. A lot of times it's close in the first half, and then third quarter is when they really turn it on. And so, yes, I think that the Wolves did play very well that game. I think especially offensively, they haven't been super crisp on offense, but defensively, they're doing that pretty much every night. They have the number 1 defense in the league. They just really make things difficult, both at the rim and out on the perimeter for opposing offenses. And that certainly was the case in that Grizzlies game as well.
Okay, you brought up 2 things that I want to dive into. So let's go with this one first. You mentioned that the third quarter is kind of where the Grizzlies' third quarter is actually their worst quarter. So that's not a great thing. But it was the second quarter in that last game. They held the Grizzlies to just 17 points. And I guess a lot of that does have to do with the guys that you just said. And Rudy, a former defensive player of the year, has a lot to do with that. In the last 4 games, he's been playing real well. 18.5 points per game, 15.5 rebounds, 71% from the field. This is the question that I posed to you. On the offensive end for Rudy, we know what he can do defensively. He's kind of the anchor of this team. Offensively, he's been having really great games as of late. The Grizzlies have the best paint defense since Thanksgiving. And I know this stat seems silly, but it's Bismack getting more, into the Grizzlies system. It's Jalen Noel, who I want to talk to you a little bit about later, kind of getting more acclimated with perimeter defense. Bismack, Jaren, the guys who are going to come off from the bench, do they pose a threat to the big guys offensively?
I think a little bit. Biyombo is a guy who historically over the years has given the Wolves problems with how athletic he is, how hard he plays, and especially I would say last year. It's been a little better this year, but last year the Wolves really struggled, for as big as they are, to grab rebounds, especially offensive rebounds for the opponent. And so Biyombo does that very, very well. And so usually his energy and activity really kind of seems to just throw the Wolves off. And so I think that's going to be a key to watch tonight, with him getting more established in that rotation and getting some more minutes. And then if Jaren Jackson can stay out of foul trouble, that's a big thing. The Wolves have tried even more of late to be a bully ball team, to use their size to their advantage. Karl Anthony Towns is playing very well.
Big team.
Yeah, Rudy has been very efficient at the rim, and earlier this season he was not. He was uncharacteristically missing a lot of shots right around the rim and dropping passes and things like that. He's been much more fluid. So I would expect them, especially if Edwards is still a little bit slowed with his hip injury that he's kind of coming off of, I would expect this kind of offense to revolve even more around Rudy and Cat. And that has worked very well for them lately. And I think that you will see them not sort of back down from Jaren and Biyombo, but go right at them and see if they are ready for the challenge.
Yeah. We'll talk about Ant too, because I'll do Ant and Des last, but I do want to talk a little bit about Jaylen Noel. He just signed another, like his second 10-day contract. He's been playing so great for the Grizzlies. And there was a night where he went like 0 for 6 from the field, but he's still like this energy guy. He just brings something that the Grizzlies were missing. In the last game, he went 6 for 8 from the field, probably his best scoring night, but still defensively, energy wise. And obviously he's going up against a team that he played for. So you covered him. What do you like about Jaylen Noel?
There's so many things I like about Jaylen Noel. He was one of my favorites when he was here. And it's more of just like when you spend a little bit of time around him, how thoughtful he is, how, he has an incredible backstory of losing his father at a young age and really trying to fulfill the family's legacy and carry it on his shoulders. And so from that aspect, just seeing him have a little success really warms my heart. But secondly, he is an incredibly talented bucket getter. When he is in the flow offensively, it's a tough cover for people. He has a varied game. He can get to the mid-range. He can go to the basket, can knock down threes. Last season, they very much wanted Jaylen Noel to be their sixth man, to be their scorer off the bench. And for a multitude of reasons, it just didn't work out for him. And so it was tough to watch him struggle and grind through everything that he was going through last year. And so to see him have a little bit of success in Memphis, I couldn't be happier for him. I hope he stays there, because I do think when you get him comfortable and in rhythm and feeling good with the people around him, he is a weapon. He can really do things for you. And I expect him to bring it tonight against the Wolves. I think he has some scores that he wants to settle here. And so I'll be having fun watching him, because he's just so creative in his offensive game and the ways that he can get his shots, and just, in the locker room, a super fun guy to talk to. And, I wish him all the best. I hope it works out for him there.
I love that you love him as much as like we have these last 20 something days. Okay. Lastly, and probably most importantly, Anthony Edwards, Desmond Bane, the star power that these two bring. What's most exciting about watching these guys go head to head again?
Yeah, I mean, they both are just hyper competitive, right? Like they both get after you and want to win. And that sometimes means getting in your face. That sometimes means talking a little trash. That sometimes means dunking on someone or hitting 12 threes like Desmond Bane can do. So I can't wait to see them go at each other. Edwards missed 2 games prior to the last one with a hip pointer. He fell on his hip against Oklahoma City, and he was not himself until like the fourth quarter against the Spurs, when he had a huge putback dunk and started to play some good defense. So I want to see like how the hip is responding and see if it's loosened up a little bit. But I do know, as I said earlier, and KJ, like he loves playing in Memphis. Yeah. He always gets up for this game. He looks at it as a rivalry, and I know that Bane looks at it that way too. And I'm sure that he didn't like how the last game went, and 49 against the Pistons, he'll be ready to fire. So those two, it's going to be head to head perimeter game, go at each other. And I can't wait for it. It's going to be fun. I'm really excited too. That's the thing that, like, obviously I would love to watch any NBA game. Like, we have great jobs, but yeah, Des and Ant, they're both dogs. They both have their teams. It's going to be fun tonight. John, thank you so very much. I appreciate you more than you know. So thank you very much. Again, the game tips off at, it's a regular tip time tonight, 7 p.m. We've had such weird tip times with Vegas and
weekend. So regular time again, John. Thank you.
Always good to see you, Kelcey.